I say what up though. It's your boy Craig, and of course I'm back at your beanie with another 5-piece. So let's talk about some of the goings that have gone on within the last week in Charger land. Time to get to it. As I'm sure many of you fine folks already know, Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley sat down during this week's league meetings for a couple interviews, and there were some interesting tidbits that were given out. Actually going to call number one close to the vest, by the way. And they did a pretty good job at playing a little bit of poker. You also want to read between the lines in scenarios like this, because somewhere in the middle probably lies the truth. Definitely want to give out everything you're looking to do come next month, but you do want to kind of put some breadcrumbs out there in the event that you can get on some teams' radars for some potential moves. And I think there was a good job done there. Staley kind of stated that the 21st pick this year, where they're picking and the level of talent in this class, makes things pretty wide open. And I think that's true to an extent. There's a good chance that 3 to 4 QBs could go in the first round. Some guys could get pushed down the board. Almost always happens this way. And thank goodness this isn't a horrible QB class as we've seen in years prior. So ultimately, I think that when you consider what he said, kind of what Telesco said, because they were on the same page, I mean, what do you expect? That's kind of their job. They want to be on one accord, or at least sound like it publicly. That they could go a couple ways in the first round, but there are also some other options, which I'll get to here in a second. But I was okay with what I heard. No complaints. And that kind of leads me into number two, deal or no deal. Staley alluded to several good players being available near the end of the first and going into the second round. So one could take from that, potentially the Chargers may be willing, for the first time in a very long time, they might be looking at a trade back. And I'd be perfectly fine with that. There are a couple of guys that are on my radar that I'm a big fan of that I wouldn't necessarily be very high on taking at 21, but the Chargers could move back a few spots later into the first, pick up an additional third, possibly a second, then I'd be all on board with them taking them. A guy like Kalijah Cansey, of course, Darnell Washington being one of my favorite guys. I don't necessarily think that if they trade back too far or deeply into the late 20s that they'll have an opportunity to take a guy like Zay Flowers. He's been moving up the boards, and y'all know how much I've admired him for literally the better part of a year and a half plus. So there is a real opportunity for the Chargers to make some additional moves to add to the roster. As you've seen, some guys haven't been re-signed, and some of that depth is a little questionable. And you've got Herbert's contract coming up, which they're working on, apparently. And you got to make some maneuvers when it comes to the cap. The best option right now is to try to add as much young talent as possible. And also, this can't be a year where you have early, second, third, maybe even fourth round pick that doesn't see much of the field. It's not really an option. Those guys are going to have to come in and be instant contributors. So hope your scouting department has done a great job, and I hope your coaching staff is ready to earn their paychecks. Electric sliding right on into number 3. Kel loves orange soda. Staley loves secondary. Did y'all see the way that man started beaming when he was discussing safety play? I mean, it's almost like a parent with a newborn or a younger child. You know how like you'll ask them about their kid and they just light up, and for the next 30 to 45 minutes, they can just go. And eventually, if you don't cut them off, they'll take up your entire afternoon. But, I digress. That was pretty much Staley in this discussion. And you took a few things away from that. At least I did. We know how important the position is, and the Chargers have a hole there. Now, you could argue that Alohi Gilman's the next in line. I mean, technically, yes. You've got JT Woods still learning and growing. But I see Alohi still as a rotational guy, not someone that you want back there full time. That said, he mentioned a couple names, and you should definitely be paying attention to that. We all know that John Johnson was on the radar from his time that he spent with the Rams and Staley. So there's that. But there's also Adrian Amos that Staley had some time with in Chicago. Both guys are on the market, and it seems like they may potentially just be waiting to see how the draft shakes out to possibly drive their market value up, because teams will still be needy post-draft. There are some younger guys that they could get come April, but it sounds to me like Staley's looking for someone with some more experience to help man that back end. So probably the two most likely options. And I think it's a smart thing for them to wait until after the draft just to see how things shake out. And I honestly feel like one of the two guys are going to end up a Charger. Adrian Amos is, I think, like 29. John Johnson's like 27. So he's the younger of the two. Probably get a little bit more work out of him for a little bit longer. So we'll see where that goes. But man, oh man, I don't think the Chargers are going to go into next season with a younger guy, nor do I believe that Alohi's going to be the man there. Let's see if I'm wrong or right. I'm leaning towards them going with the experience side of things, though. So, yeah. All right, number 4 has been a really sensitive subject, hot button topic. Really can't believe it's been going on this long, but here we are. And I'm only going to speak on it briefly. But we're going to call this one perception versus reality. Now, before I get into the crux of where I'm going with this, Staley talked a little bit about the linebacker position, spoke on Drew Tranquill, had nothing but nice things to say. Of course, he's not going to bag on a dude on the way out. I mean, it's not Staley's thing. He also heaped a ton of praise on Eric Kendricks, as he should. Somebody that's been brought into the fold to play a pivotal position. And I say pivotal for a reason, because he went through everything that Kendricks is. All of his attributes, what makes him a key cog in the middle of the defense. And that brought me to thinking that, hey, I know that he's talking the guy up, but I also took into consideration everything that he is saying about him and what it means to the defense. Kendricks is probably going to wear the green dot. And not just anyone can do that. Got to be able to get everyone in position, call the proper plays, and perform at a high level yourself. You're not just going to give that role or that title or that honor, if you will, to anyone. I think there's a fair chance that the linebacker position has been undersold in regards to its importance on defense. And we'll see how that works itself out this year. We saw some instances where linebacker play did not pay high dividends. So now you have a guy in the middle that should be able to remedy a lot of that. Still have to see what happens with Mr. Murray. Not super hopeful about how that will pan out. But look, man, maybe the guy turns it on this year. Maybe playing next to Kendricks helps out. We'll see. Now on to like the meat and potatoes of this. And again, I'm only going to speak on this briefly. The whole thing with Tranquill and the different stories that have come out, all I ask is this, people. Use your brains. One story lends itself to the support of the player. The other story paints the team in a specific light. Use discernment and you can figure out where the information is probably coming from. And then believe what you want. That's all I ask. Take 5 seconds, and instead of being outraged about everything and standing on a hill trying to proclaim who's right and who's making up crap, just take the information for what it is and apply it to who it could be coming from. And things make a lot more sense then. Do with that what you will, believe what you want, and stand in it. The end. And rounding out the 5th, that's right, FIF, ebonically speaking, the HAKA hits the highway. So in a little bit of fresher news, Mr. Braden Fehoko is heading up to Pittsburgh. Best of luck to him. Am I shocked? Nah. The dude was fighting to make the roster the last few seasons. There was a lot of back and forth stuff, interesting Twitter takes. That's a different story. But what it does is opens up another hole in the defensive line from a rotational standpoint, because things are a little thin there. So it makes me wonder, what's the plan moving forward? Because this is not the draft to need interior defensive line depth later. That's really going to make a huge difference or be in your regulatory rotation, because things get pretty thin after the first 2-3 rounds. Probably not looking for a starter, If you want to impact day one guy, someone who can be an interior pass rusher, that can also play that role alongside Morgan Fox, you'd have to get him a little early. And I don't think the Chargers are going to make an investment that soon, unless the trade back scenario comes into play. Then things change a little bit. Right now, you've got two guys out of your four-man rotation that are coming back off of injury. I would imagine Tito probably starts the year on the PUP. And I don't know what happens with Austin Johnson. I don't know how far along he is. Maybe he'll be good to go. Maybe he won't. We don't have that information as of yet. But when you take all those things into consideration, you need to get some more bodies in the room, capable bodies. And with that said, that could possibly affect some of the moves they make in a few weeks. Some of the selections, should I say. Should be a fun time. Either way, looking forward to it. And that's going to be it, people. I appreciate you, as usual, for joining me here. Listen to me ramble and all my musings about this team, my critiques, criticisms. But above all, I'm an objective realist. And that's all you're ever going to get from me. Straight up. No games being played here. None of that Homer stuff. So again, until the next time, y'all take it easy. Until I'm back with another 5-piece for that head top. Y'all keep it clean. Be good out there. And I'll catch y'all next time. Go on.